Good afternoon. This is Charli here with your question of the week. And it's Friday and I still need a jingle. Does anyone out there, can they do jingles for question of the week? It would be great if you knew how to do jingles. You could get in touch and let me know. Anyway, this week I asked in my free female-only support group who would like a question answered, and I got 3 or 4 questions and I've chosen one. A couple of them I'd already answered and pointed them in the direction of those answers, but this week Sarah asked, everyone talks about low moods. Where do low moods come from and do we have control of them? So if I were to say to you, like anyone watching this, where do you think low moods come from? Like probably you'd answer me lack of sleep, hormones, children, partners, family, work, money, COVID. You could probably list me. Hi, Heidi. Give me a wave. Oh, Heidi, I watched that amazing film on Gaia that you sent me the thing for, looking for Finding the Present. It was really good. Anyway, thank you for that recommendation. So yeah, if I said to you, where do you think low moods come from? You could probably give me a description of circumstances or physical illnesses or other people, something that was kind of outside of you that would be the cause of your low moods. So, and the other part of the question is, where do low moods come from and do we have control of them? So these are 2 really great questions, because what I want you to kind of get a sense for is, yes, if I were to ask you, where do low moods come from? You could probably give me a huge array of answers for that question. And it was what I used to think too. I used to think that my low moods were down to the difficulties I had looking after my father, or, you know, being hugely busy at work, or not getting enough sleep. And I think potentially those things were, you know, they were in my radar as being impactful on my life. But what I now understand about low moods is that sometimes we can just wake up in a low mood, and there's actually there is no reason for that. So you may have woken up at some point in your life and gone, and said to people, oh my God, I feel in a really bad mood and I don't know why. And alternatively, you might have woken up and said to your friends, I'm in a great mood and I don't know why. And it's because we always have no control over our level of consciousness. And what I mean by level of consciousness is that we will wake up sometimes higher in that level of consciousness, where things that might normally bother us won't bother us, and sometimes we're in a lower level of consciousness where everything feels difficult and everything bothers us. And the way one of my mentors describes that level of consciousness is like, he'll say, this is a guy called Jack Pransky, and he will say it's like an elevator of consciousness. And if you don't know anything about the principles that I teach, what you may get a sense of is that, yeah, sometimes you wake up and you feel like, yeah, life's good and you can handle what's coming. And other times you just feel like you want to go back under the duvet and hide away and binge watch TV. Hello from East Africa. That's nice of you to join me. So just say that were true. Like, just say that what I was saying is true, that sometimes we can. So this is what Jack Pransky talks about, like the elevator of consciousness, is that if you're like on the ground floor in the elevator of consciousness, say you've woken up, people will say to you, you've got out of bed the wrong side, that sort of comment, you know, like you're scowling, you're a bit grumpy, the energy that's coming off you is is prickly. People can feel it, people can sense it, and you can sense it. And all the time you're kind of looking outside of you, looking for something, someone to blame for this low mood. Now, the way Jack Pransky describes this is when we're in that kind of basement of consciousness, everything is difficult. So we feel rage, we feel anxiety, we feel kind of that our world is very, very small and it's all about me, 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 me. Poor me, that person's hurting me, my job's difficult, it's interrupting me. You know, my children are being difficult and they're annoying me. And it's all about me, me, me. And when we're in that place, like the second part of Sarah's question is, do we have control over them? What I see about that now is no, because it will pass on through. I've stopped looking outside of myself to blame my low moods. I just know sometimes I wake up and I feel like poop. And in the past, I would have looked outside and looked for something to blame for that low mood, okay? Where now I realise that sometimes I just wake up and I'm in the basement of that elevator of consciousness and there's nothing anyone can do. It's nobody's fault. I just have to put my head down and really not trust any of the thoughts that come into my mind, because they're usually of the poor me variety or anxious variety or angry variety or annoying variety, right? So I just know not to trust that thinking. But if you don't know this understanding, just get a feel for what I'm saying, is that your mind will automatically look outside of you to find a reason for why you're feeling shit. Okay, now in a day or a week or a year even, but often in a day, you can move up or down this elevator of consciousness. Now, usually if you're aware of your moods, it might take a week for people to come out of it. It might take a day for people to come out of it. But as you start to get a feel for this, you'll notice that you can come up, and the more you come up in that level of consciousness, you become less about me, 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 and more about, oh, I can see that that's upsetting that person, or I can see that that person's upset over there, and they're in their anxious state, they're maybe angry, they're taking it out of me. So you are able in that elevator, once you come up, to take other people's low moods less seriously. Whereas when you're in the basement, everything is very serious and everything feels very personal. As you come up and up and up, and you can potentially, it is possible because I've experienced it, where you can have an experience of not taking anything personally, of really seeing through the elevator where you've come up and you can see the mountains and you can see the sea and you can see fields, and you can just really see above, you know, the seriousness of your little life. Like Heidi, thank you. Yeah, we don't usually look to blame anyone from a high mood, but we are aware of our attachments. Be aware of our attachments. That's really a good point, because when we're in that kind of low state, Heidi, we're very attached to outcomes. So like, I'll be happy when, or if this person could just, or when I've completed this, or if only I was like we are very attached to things being a certain way. And what I love about this understanding is that, aside from the fact that it's transformed my life, and there are moments, you know, where I get caught up in my thinking, of course. And when I say caught up in my thinking, I mean I can be in that low state. I can be in the basement of the elevator of consciousness. I can feel that life is very personal. I can feel that kind of poor me state. But I have more and more and more time up, either sort of mid or up, kind of, higher, in a higher status. And the more I do this work, and I'm so lucky to do this work, and I have these great conversations with people. Like last night we had an amazing group call in my circle group where people were sharing their insights, and one woman's been sober for 12 days and another woman has had an insight around her eating. It's just amazing, you know, and just being in that conversation, all of us, kind of brings us up and out of that kind of really low, stagnant, stale state. So going back to the original question, Sarah, where do low moods come from? I think they're just a state of being human. I think if you don't know that the experience is coming from the inside out, you feel like a victim of life. You feel like a victim of people. You can feel like a victim of circumstance. You can feel like a victim to money or status or relationships or love or food. You know, it feels like you are disempowered. Can we do anything about our low moods? I think you can potentially do what occurs to you. Like for me, I love going outside for a walk. But as a rule, as a general rule, as I understand it now, Sarah, I would say you just have to wait for it to pass, because it will always move through you, no matter what happens. You know, I remember a time, and I've spoken about this before, but I'll talk about it now because grief is one of those things that people would say, yes, I am grief-stricken, or I can be in a low mood. When my brother died, I remember being really kind of consumed by this grief and this disassociation and this like thinking I was in a dream-like state, like I'm going to wake up soon, this isn't real. And chronically traumatized and sad. And then there would be moments, little pockets, where my mental health would rise to the surface and I'd laugh or I'd joke or I'd have a moment of joy with friends. And because I didn't know this then, I thought there was something wrong and I had to go back. And as soon as I kind of caught sight of myself having a joyful moment, I would bring myself back to the sad mood and the anxious state and the grief-stricken state. I forgive, you know, like that part of me that didn't know any different didn't know that you could experience joy even in the depths of hideous traumatic grief. And that's because we don't necessarily have control over them. Now I feel like more and more and more I'm in an easier state. I have more ease in my life. I think if you can see behind me, I've got ease on my mirror. It wasn't always that way. Definitely not always that way. But there's so much hope. There's so much hope in this understanding. There's so much hope out there for people. I'm so passionate about sharing it. I just want everyone to have an easier way of living, and to know that there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you, no matter whether you have low moods or depression or any kind of habits of behaviour. You are perfectly well and you experience life as it shows up and moves through you, and that includes thoughts and feelings. So I hope that was helpful. I am getting ready to go away. I'm going to Ibiza tomorrow, early morning. And yes, Heidi, we are always doing the best that we can see to do. And yeah, if only I'd known this 20 years ago, I would have saved myself so many years of heartache. But I'm getting ready when I get back to keep talking to people about my UK retreat, and I'm getting ready to launch my Finding Freedom program again, my 8-week Finding Freedom program, which I love doing because we get really deep into this juicy freedom finding place with a lovely group. So I'll look forward to seeing you. Have a great week, guys. And thank you always for your questions, and look after each other in the free group. And I'll talk to you very soon. Mwah. Take care. Bye.